Now we're learning the HafTorah, the extra portion which is read every Shabbat after the regular reading. Right? There was one time in the history of Judaism, I think it was in the time of the Romans or something, that they forbade the Jews to read from the Torah. And they confiscated all the Torahs, whatever. So the Jews, just so they wouldn't forget, so they read from the HafTorah. In other words, in public, in private, they would read from the regular Torah, but it's a part of the Shabbat prayers. I guess they would send special emissaries, the Romans, whatever, to see that they didn't read from the Torah. So they would read from what's called the HafTorah. HafTorah usually was from prophets, but sometimes it wasn't. We learned last week from Samson, the story of Samson, and sometimes a song of King David, from the book of Samuel, and Samson was from the book of Judges. So sometimes it's not, but generally speaking, it's from the prophets. And it usually deals with something that's similar to the Torah, the topic, or at least one of the topics of the Torah portion, usually the name of the Torah portion. Okay, so here, this Torah portion is called BHaalotcha. God commands Moses to command Aaron to light the menorah, the candelabra, the lamps in the temple, in the tabernacle. And it was the tabernacle. So the HafTorah that we read is similar to that. Okay, now, but the HafTorah contains deep messages. Everything contains deep messages, but also, especially this week, when we're going to learn about the prophecy of Zacharia. Prophecy of Zacharia. Now, who was Zacharia? First of all, prophecy. He was one of the prophets. He was one of the last prophets. He was a prophet in the beginning of the Second Temple. The Second Temple was already beginning, and he was a prophet over there. Also, Haggai and Malachi. They were also these three last sort of official prophets that were recorded in the books of prophets. And after that, there's no more official what they call prophets. There certainly is prophecy in the Jewish people, and the Rambam writes that before Mashiach comes, prophecy will return in a big way to the Jewish people. And we saw there were prophets. It was Baal Shem Tov and others that were also had the power of prophecy. They could tell what was going to happen. Okay, so here we have Zacharia. Zacharia, he's right in the beginning of the Second Temple. Now, it was very hard times for the Jews back then. First of all, the first temple had been destroyed. And because of that, and the Jews weren't in such good spiritual state before it was destroyed. That was why the first temple was destroyed. And they had all these prophecies from Isaiah that don't worry, the Jews are going to be gathered again. Mashiach is going to gather them. He's going to bring them to the land of Israel, build the third temple. But nevertheless, the people were used to idolatry and things. And they were all taken into prison, into captivity in Babylon. All the Jews. There was a small handful of Jews that remained behind in Israel. But most of the Jews were in Babylon, and they got along over there. They got along pretty good. They weren't really suffering over there. And the Jews that were left back in Israel started filling up with all these non-Jewish nations, and the Jews intermarried with them. They intermarried. So the situation is a pretty dire situation. So comes along the prophets, and the prophets receive these messages from God, and they tell the Jewish people on one hand, clean up your act, Jews, start acting like Jews, start doing the commandments and stuff. And the Second Temple wasn't such a big problem with idolatry. Idolatry wasn't such a big problem. The First Temple, it was still a problem, but nothing like the First Temple. First Temple was like big time pleasure that people used to get from idolatry. It's hard for us to imagine what that is now. But that's the way it used to be. So, okay, now they're in the Second Temple, and they've got other problems. And their main problem is that they want to be like the non-Jews. They want to just let it go. Come on, why should we have to hold on to this identity? We're outnumbered, 1,000 to 1, 500 to 1. And the nations all still hate us. So in the previous chapter, we're now in, this is the second chapter of Zacharia. The first chapter, he there's this vision where he sees like this thing with four horns, and he says these are going to be the four exiles that you're going to be in. And the last exile, interestingly enough, is the one we're in now, and that's called the exile of Rome. It's called the exile of Rome. And that's basically Christianity, the church and everything, all the trouble that they made for the Jews, and they're trying with all they can to dissolve Judaism, to get rid of Judaism, as intermarry with the Jews. And he says it's not going to work. All the nations that try to make trouble, even though the last exile, this what's called the exile of Rome, has been for 2,000 years. It's a pretty long time, but nevertheless, it's all going to end. Okay? And the Jews are going to come back to the land of Israel. Now, almost all the prophets that we learn are prophesying about the days of the Mashiach. Even though there's also prophecies about the first temple, the hopes that Mashiach will be, for instance, Isaiah, all of his prophecies that are misused by these, the Christians and others, those are prophesying about the King Chezkiyahu. King Chezkiyahu, he was supposed to be Mashiach. Chezkiyahu was supposed to be Mashiach. And also, of course, the prophecies are also about Mashiach himself. Mashiach ben David, supposed to come. And all right, so let's go. Here we go. Here we have Zacharia. Zacharia is saying to the Jews, it's a bit long, so let's take some time. Zacharia is saying to the Jews, Rani v'simchi b'Tzion, be happy. One second, let me see my recording. Yeah. Be happy and rejoice, the daughters of Zion. The Jewish people are called Zion. The reason they're called Zion, excuse me, I want to turn on this thing here. My air conditioner. One second, excuse me. Hot day today. Here we are. The Holy Land gets hot. All right, just one more small historical fact over here. The Jews returned back to Israel from Babylon because Darius, the king Darius, Darius, the king Darius, he conquered the Babylonians. The Babylonians, they destroyed the first temple, and they conquered the whole world. And came Darius from Persia, and he defeated the Babylonians. And he, for some reason, all of a sudden, he liked the Jews. So he gave the Jews permission to come to the land of Israel and build the temple. There were Jews that were called the Shomranim, the Samaritans. And in fact, they weren't really Jews. These were other nations that had moved in and settled in. But they thought they were Jews. They considered themselves to be Jews, and they said, hey, we want to help build the temple. And the leaders of the Jews said, no way, we don't want you to help. You want to help us? Keep away. Well, who were the leaders of the Jewish people in that time? There was a king, and there was the high priest. The king, his name was Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel, that was his name. He was Zerubbabel ben Shaltiel. He was the king of the Jews, a direct descendant of King David. Zerubbabel, strange name, but that was his name, Zerubbabel. And there was the high priest. The high priest, his name was Yoshua. Yoshua was the high priest. He must have been a pretty old fellow, because it says that he was one of those that went into the Babylonian exile. And the Babylonian exile was 70 years, and now he came back. So he was like the high priest before he went in. So I mean, he must be, I don't know, 100 years old. He must have been pretty old by this time. In any case, that's representing the Jewish people. That's the hope of the Jewish people, is Zerubbabel, the king, and Yoshua, the high priest, because they want to build a second temple. They want to build a second temple. And of course, we have the prophet over here. We have the prophet. There's prophet Hosea, and there's prophet Zacharia, Chagai, Zacharia, Malachi. Not Hosea. Hosea was in Israel. Okay. So these Shomranim, they prevented the building of the temple. This, by the way, was the time of the miracle of Purim. This is the time of the miracle of Purim. Right in the beginning, right before the second temple was built. And the miracle of Hanukkah was going to be like 200 years later. That's when the Greeks took over. The Greeks, then they conquer they take over the world. Okay, so here we are. They're in Israel. They have the chance. They're beset by all sorts of problems. There's like 40,000 Jews came from Babylon. Something like 43,000 something Jews came from Babylon. I think the majority of the Jews remained back there in Babylon. And they came to rebuild the temple. And now they have this problem from the Shomronim, from these Samaritans. And the Samaritans even sent a delegation to stop the building of the temple. And Haman, he was one of the people in this delegation that went back. They got non-Jews also to tell them to stop the Jews from building the temple. And meanwhile, whenever the Jews did have a chance to build the second temple, they were a little bit sort of sluggish in doing it. And so Zacharia is coming and telling them, don't be sluggish. It's going to be okay. Don't give up. Everything is going to be fine. Rani v'simchi bat Zion. Be happy and rejoice, daughters of Zion. This means the Jewish people. Because I am coming, says God. V'shachanti b'tochech, and I will dwell within you. Ne'um Hashem, so says God. V'nilvu goyim rabim el Hashem. And many, many nations will come to drop their religions and join God by Yomahu on that day. They will be for me for a people, but I will dwell within you, holy temple. And you will know Hashem Tzavakos, that the God of hosts, Shalachani Elecha, sent me. He's talking about himself, to be with you. There he says, Mitzudas David, Benilvu, then will join the many non-Jews with you, and there will be for a tremendous nation, because the whole world will believe in God. But nevertheless, I will dwell only among the Jews and not among the non-Jews. I will not dwell in Chicago or in Moscow or these other places. My dwelling will be in Jerusalem, only among you. V'nachal Hashem et Yehuda chelko, and God will, inherit Yehuda, the tribe of Yehuda, its portion on the Holy Land, and God will choose Jerusalem, right? Jerusalem. Yehuda, that's where the Holy Temple was. That's where Jerusalem is, in that part of Yehuda and Benjamin. But Benjamin was already sort of dissolved already, so that was left was Yehuda. And I will choose Jerusalem, says God. Jerusalem will be my holy place. Has kol basor, all flesh will be quiet before God. Ki neor mimaon kadsho, because he will arouse the world from his holy place. And it was the temple. Everyone will be quiet. Good. So starts off on a good note. V'yareini, and God showed me Yeshua Kohen Gadol. He showed me Joshua, the high priest, Omed Lifnei Malach Hashem, standing in front of the angel of God. Now it's going to start getting really weird. Ready? It's the angel of God. So this is like a vision of this high priest standing up there, of a Satan, and the devil is standing, of a Satan Omed al Yamino, on his right hand to prosecute him. Lastino al Shoya Banav. Okay, so what's the problem with this Yeshua Kohen Gadol? He was the high priest. He was like the hope of the Jewish people, but he had a lot of sons, and his sons. He was one of the people in the exile in Babylon, and he had a lot of sons, and his sons married non-Jewish women. So he remained a holy person, but his sons, they put a big blemish on this whole thing. So now he's going to be judged. Is it his fault that his sons married non-Jews. Huh? Can a person who's all of his sons get married to non-Jews, he can be the high priest? Is it such a piece like that? It says there's another explanation also that Yoshua he survived being thrown into a fiery furnace beforehand. Then he was also judged, and he made a big miracle. But miracle. Okay, now so you know the story about Hananiah, Mishael, Zacharia. How do they call? Anyway, they got thrown into a fiery furnace. This is the time of King David of Daniel, and they survived. Well, right after that, also the Babylonians or whoever it was, they threw Zacharia and this high priest and Achav was a big sinner into a fiery furnace. And I think they all survived. Achav, even though that he was really bad news, but he also survived this thing. So it says he survived on the merit of the other two. So it says this Yoshua, he had already been judged before, and he got out of it. And now they're trying to judge him again. The Jewish people are coming back to the land of Israel, and they want him to be the high priest. Come on, you know who his sons are? By Yomer Hashem, God said to the Satan, to the prosecuting angel, Yigar Hashem b'ch, I'm yelling at you. Yigar Hashem b'ch, and God yelled at him, Ha-bocher b'Yerushalayim halozeh udmut tzoma'esh. He said, how can you, I am a God that I have chosen Jerusalem, and I have chosen this Yoshua, the high priest, and he is a coal that is saved from the fire. That's what that says. He was thrown with Achav, this is Rashi, with Achav and his friends into a fire, and he got out. He was saved. So, this is a holy man. How can you have any doubts about him? And God says this is the Malbim. Malbim says that because God says, I chose Jerusalem, so in this merit, because Yoshua, he's the high priest, and I'll need him to serve in the holy temple, and I chose the holy temple, so therefore I'm saving him also. And not only that, don't you know that maybe there won't be he won't be able to be saved this time, right? But you see that there was a big miracle that was done for him. So it says, when he was thrown into this fiery furnace previously, he didn't come out unscathed because it says that his clothes were burned. So we see that the fire did rule over him. His clothes were burned because of the sins of his sons. So that's why. So there's a big question, can this man really be the high priest? He's got this bad background. So it says Yeshua was put into, and now Yeshua was in this vision that he saw. Yeshua, the high priest, he was in these dirty garments, and he stood before this angel to be judged. That's what he says. This is because they married non-Jewish women, so therefore he had these dirty garments. So he had suffered before the garments were burned, and now he has dirty garments. Okay. Vayan, and he answered. It says that the angel lifted his voice. Vayan, he lifted his voice and he said, Ela omdim lefanav, to those standing in front of him, lemor, hasiru abagadim atzoim, remove these dirty garments from you. Vayomer elevra, see, havarti me'alecha avonecha, God said to Yoshua, the high priest, I have removed your sin from you. Halbesh otach otcha, and I'm putting on you machalatzos, new garments. New garments. He says, Rashi, chalifot begadim, new garments, beautiful garments, I'm giving to you. So this is also a big hint to the Jewish people, because they had also, a lot of them married non-Jewish women. So he's saying, listen, what you did in the past is all in the past. How do you say what how they say, what you did in Babylon remains in Babylon. You did bad things, just forget. Ask for forgiveness, you get forgiveness. Not only that, it could be that the things that you did were because of somebody else. They're not your fault. You were forced to it. But Omar Yasimu Tzaniv Tahor, and he said, put a like a turban, a pure garment on your head. Yasimu Tzaniv Tahor, and he put the pure garment on his head. And he put on garments. Malach Hashem Omed, and the angel of God stood. Pretty strange HafTorah, I told you, was stood. Okay. Vayan Malach Hashem, and the angel again spoke to Yehoshua, this high priest, and he said, and now you have to, this is before the temple was built, right? This is before the second temple was built. The second temple stood for 420 years. So this is before the second temple is built. There's this whole sort of argument in heaven going on, are the people who are going to serve there, are they really fit to serve there? Is it fit? Kol Amar Hashem Tzavot. This, now God makes an announcement. This is Zacharia saying, if you walk in my path, Ve'im et mishmarti tishmor, and my commandments you do. V'gam atata din et beiti, you will be a judge. V'gam tishmor et chatzerai, and you will protect my holy, my holy courtyard, the temple. V'natati lecha, I will make you mahalchim, you will be walking, bein omdim elu, among these ones who are standing. Now the angels are standing. It says the angels only have 1 foot. They're standing in one place all the time, and they go up like in an elevator. They go up, no. But Jews, they have 2 legs, and so they can walk. How do they walk? Positive commandments, negative commandments. Right? Learning Torah, understanding Torah, getting higher in Torah. That's called walking, moving, being dynamic. It says, if you do my commandments, says, I'm also going to do this to you, says Rashi. Then you will be a judge. You will be able to judge, and everything that goes on in the Holy Temple. He's speaking to Yehoshua. And you will be walking between these standing, all the angels. The angels, they're just called standing. Right? Here Rashi says they're standing because they can't sit down. It means that they're standing, and you will have an advantage even on the angels. And the angels, you'll be able to serve me in the temple. We have a beautiful long malbim over here, because you'll be able to do the sacrifices. They'll be doing the sacrifices this. He'll be the high priest, right? The high priest, in addition to being a judge, he also makes the sacrifices. So that makes everything move. According to the malbim, this whole business he's talking about is a prophecy for the third temple. This is talking about the third temple. It says it will come from you a branch that is going to build the third temple. Shehem yakdishu, that they will be holy like angels, but they'll be even more. They'll be able to move among the angels, and they'll be there eternally. Now, this is talking about the time when there won't be any more death. Death will be wiped out from the world, and they'll be walking. But the human beings, especially the people that are holy in the merit of the temple, will be able to live eternally, like the angels do. And this was especially said to this, the high priest, Yehoshua, because he was the one that because his offspring, they'll serve in the third temple as well. So we have King David. He's going to be a direct descendant from this Zerubbabel. And the high priest, he'll be a direct descendant from our own high priest, and from this Yehoshua, who was also direct descendant from Yehoshua. So this is all a prophecy regarding the third temple as well. So telling that not to give up. Shema now, listen, Yehoshua the Kohen, the high priest. Ata v'reacha, you and your compatriots, yoshvim lefanecha, that sit before you, anshe mofezema, you are people that are worthy of miracles. Ke'eneni mevi, because behold, I am going to bring a mes avdi, my servant Tzemach. Now, who is Tzemach? As a Tzemach is the Mashiach. That's one, but we'll see. Let's see different explanations. Who is the servant Tzemach? Here, Rashi says that this is Zerubbabel. This is Zerubbabel, that he's going to be the king. I'm going to bring him, and he's going to, says now Zerubbabel is opening up a small opening to be the king. And I am going to come, someone from Zerubbabel is going to be there's going to be a big opening. And he will be he will find favor in the eyes of all the kings of the world, and etc. Okay, but especially this is talking about Zerubbabel, that the kings of the world will find favor, and they'll let them build the second temple. That's what Rashi says. But the Malbim again says that this is talking about, one minute. Here, this is talking about Zerubbabel, right? The king, that he is planted. Why is Zerubbabel? Zeru means he was planted in Bavel. And from him will come like a seed, that from it is going to grow up the future redemption. Because behold, here is a stone. This is the cornerstone of the temple that I have put in front of Yoshua. On the stone are 7 eyes, right? EYES, eyes, looking. So some people say this means this is talking about God's eyes are on the temple. Some people say that it means that all the nations of the world will see. Behold, I am going to open up engraving on it. I will engrave on it, says God, the Lord of hosts. Mashti et avon ha'oretz hahi b'yom echad, and I will remove the sin of the land of Israel in one day. He says, I don't know which day it is, as Rashi, but nevertheless, Mashti means I will remove all of the sins. And he says it means that that all the world will look at this. That's what's the 7 eyes from the 70 nations. Different opinions here we have. Also, the Malbim talks very beautifully about this. Says, but don't worry, let's just go to the end. And when I bring my servant Tzemach, which that's going to be the Mashiach, then I will carve out the eyes on this thing, like it says before. I'll remove all the sins of Israel. I'll forgive all the Jewish people for everything they've done. That's prophecy. On that day, says God, God of hosts, Tikru'u ish l're'ehu el tachat gefen vel tachat te'ina. Then there'll be total peace in the world, and each person will be under his own vineyard, vines, and figs. The figs, it'll be total peace, because then when I put the foundation of the temple, this big stone that he had, so then all of the trees, the vines of the grapevines and the figs, they will make shadow, they will make shade over the people who build it, and there'll be a tremendous rejoicing for everyone. We'll see, things get a bit stranger, so let's go. Okay. Vayashav Malach Hadover bi Be'areni, and the angel that was speaking to me, this is Zacharia speaking. The angel that was speaking to me came back, Be'areni, and he woke me up. Ke'ish asher ye'or mishnato, like a person that wakes up from his sleep. Okay, now all this time he's been receiving these visions of godliness, and he says, that's nothing. Now I'm going to give you a vision that's going to be even greater Then it's like you woke up from a sleep, a new higher level of consciousness. Even though the prophecy itself is a level of consciousness, higher level. The angel said to me, Ma taroeh, Zacharia, the prophet, what do you see? Omer, and I said, Re'iti, I see. V'hine menorat zahav kula. I see a golden candelabra, like the menorah, a menorah like in the temple. The gula al rosho, and there's like a bowl over it. B'shiva nerotel alea shiva b'shiva mitzukot lenerot ashel al rosha. There are 7 lamps, and there are 7 like feeding troughs for each lamp. So you have like this sort of big bowl on the top, and from this bowl comes these like pipes, sort of, and they go directly into the bowl to these 4 lamps that are there, oil lamps feeding them. Here he says, Mitzudas David says that each and every lamp had 7 pipes of oil going into it from this big bowl that was on the top, in order to keep the lights going on all the time. That's what's going on. Okay. However it is, he says, B'shnayim zeitim aleh, there were 2 olive trees. Echad miyamin, echad miyamin agola, echad is small. 2 olive trees that were flowing oil into this big bowl that's on the top. 2 olive trees, and from the olives were flowing oil into this big bowl, and from the bowl was flowing oil through these pipes into the lamps. So it was going constantly. And I answered, and I said to the angel, Ma'elu Adoni, what are these? What am I seeing over here? What is this? These grapes that are being crushed on their own, and the oil is pouring on its own into these lamps. What's going on? Vayana Malach, and the angel answered, and he said, Hello, Yadata, do you not know Mahim, what they are? V'omer lo, I don't know what they are. I don't know. Vayan, and the angel answered and said, Zeh Devar Hashem, this is the word of God to Zerubbabel, to the king. Eventually, this is going to be to the Mashiach, right? Because Mashiach is going to come from David, direct descendant. Saying like this. Oh, just give me one moment. Yes. Okay. So to Zerubbabel. Okay. Now, what do we have over here? We have the Jewish people are coming back, right, from Babylon, but everybody hates them. Everybody hates the Jews, and the king can change his mind in another moment. And also, they're surrounded by all these other Samaritans and all these other strange adversaries. And the history, he already let them know previously, that was in the previous chapter, we didn't read that there's going to be 4 big nations, and that the 4 nations are going to be against you, and you don't have to worry. So the obvious question is, once again, how are we going to beat all these nations? The whole thing doesn't make any sense. How is it going to be? And not only that, the Jews, they were just coming back. They didn't have any arms. They didn't have any weapons. And even if they did, they were outnumbered, 500 to 1. So the angel said like this, I'm going to tell, this is the word of God to Zerubbabel, the king of the Jews. Lo b'chayil, not in power, v'lo b'koach, and not by force. Ki in beruchi, only by my spirit, says God Tzavot. Only by my spirit will. And I just saw a speech by the Lubavitcher Rebbe that said, you don't have to use too much imagination for this. We see that in a battle, that sometimes if they're a very small army, but they're very, very devoted, and they're very spiritually motivated, so they can defeat a greater army, just according to nature. So here he's saying that it's not totally out of you say that the question that the Jewish people can defeat all of their enemies, or even more. Maybe they won't even have to defeat their enemies. Maybe the enemies will just defeat it on their own, because it's my spirit, says God. I'm creating everybody. I can do what I want to. My spirit is going to. I mean, okay, it's nice to say, but this is after the first temple was destroyed. Who knows how many people? I think a greater percentage of the Jewish nation was killed than in the Holocaust. For sure, a greater percent of the Jews was affected by the destruction of the first temple, a greater percent than in the Holocaust. In the Holocaust, there was 1/3 of the Jews. How many Jews lived in Europe, right? And here, all the Jews lived in Israel. The temple was destroyed. It was a heartbreak for every Jew in the world. So he says, don't worry about it. It's not by power, not by force, but by my spirit you will rule, says God. Mi ata har gadol, who are you, high mountain, in front of the king of the Jews, Zerubbabel? God will make it into a straight plain. Votzi at the Eben Harosha, and he will take out this supporting stone for the holy temple. Shuos chen chen la, that it will receive great praise from all the nations. They say grace, grace. All the nations will say the holy temple. That's really amazing. Atomic bombs, big deal. Nuclear, whatever it is, super atomic bombs. It is nuclear bombs. Doesn't impress me. Money, nothing. What impresses me is this cornerstone of the holy temple. That's going to really impress everyone. It says that therefore everyone will raise their voices and praise the creator of the universe. Here it says, who are you, high mountain? It says this is referring to Gog, the king of Gog. There's the war of Gog and Magog. It says Gog is the king and his people are called Magog. Who are you? It means to say, what power have you got? Possibly, you great mountain, be in front of the Mashiach. Labal yochal lavor, loken, that make the Mashiach. You're going to try to stop the Mashiach from coming? It's not going to work. Kimulo, because in front of the Mashiach, eretz mishar, the whole world will be like a big plain. Ubakal yavor, what does it mean? That you won't have power. Nothing in the world has the ability to stop the Mashiach from coming. So it's a big promise that Zacharia is promising the Jewish people that for sure it's going to happen. We need Mashiach now. God willing, tomorrow we'll learn, we'll have a class, 8:15 in the morning. We'll see how much we can do from the Sikha that we learned today. Have a good day with Mashiach now. Hope to see you all. So, you know what? 1 second. We have the Pirkei Avot. Let's do Pirkei Avot. We'll turn this off 1 second.